Hi Harsh, welcome to our group. Thank you so much for agreeing to share your journey with us. Congratulations on your insane score, by the way. Let's start by getting to know you a little bit. Can you walk us through your journey before deciding to go for MBA, before deciding to give the GMAT exam?
So first of all, thank you for inviting me here. It was kind of a long journey, 6 years to be said, and I think I have been to different places within India throughout my academics, my job experience. Born and brought up in Gujarat, did my high school in Rajasthan, went to Jharkhand to get a BTech in CSE, interned and got a pre-placement offer in Goldman Sachs, joined in Bangalore, have been part of GS for last 7.5 years, and now I left GS to pursue my startup dream. That's when I decided to give GMAT one final try, give my everything. Decided to get as many good opportunities from the business leadership perspective, going through this academic route, and yeah, here we are.
That sounds inspiring. Looks like you've traveled the whole of India and you're ready to take on US or any other location, any other geography that you're thinking of. Coming to your GMAT score, so 775, insane score. But I want to start by talking about Quant. Quant has been your most dependable friend from all that I've read about you, heard about you. You mentioned one very striking thing that I saw whenever you talked about Quant was that you wanted to find the better solutions, not just the correct ones. You wanted to solve a question two ways so that even if one fails, the other will work. So, can you just walk us through your quant preparation a little bit, your approach?
Yes, sure. So Quant, I believe that was something I was quite confident and something which I depended upon. When I got upset during my prep, I would just start practicing random quant questions that helped me relax, got out of this verbal DI mess. So the idea there was, I think the main learning what I got, at least from the quant strategy perspective, was to never get overconfident in something you love. And that came from my first attempt in 2019 when I was scoring quite well in my mocks, although I didn't do too much practice, kind of a month long practice, but I was scoring good. But when I went into the real test, I realized that maybe there were a couple of gap areas, concepts here or there, and I scored 49, I believe, when I was aiming for a 51. Um, I felt that a little bit more practice would have helped me. And the idea what struck with me at that point in time was never just depend upon one solution which you know, because when you are going through the real test scenario, when you are stressed, there are chances you will end up making silly mistakes here or there, maybe not reading the question properly, or maybe just doing a wrong calculation, just a random multiplication or a division error. So at those particular times when you have kind of a fresh approach ready to back you up, I think that definitely helps. And yeah, as we talk more on, I can definitely comment few more things which really helped me during my test when I was able to utilize this different approaches method to even verify my solutions. It's not just about knowing whether you did it correctly, but even verifying that whatever you are doing, is it actually right? And for me, I was aiming for Q90, and I think I didn't think twice even about getting a 88 or 89. And when you are in that mindset, you know you can't get a single question wrong. So you do everything what's possible in the books. So I started with strong fundamentals, went through Manhattan prep, didn't skip a topic. Although you will see few advices where people say that maybe you can skip harder topics, but you can't rely on luck that you won't get that particular question or topic in the test. So went through all the topics, and then I think when I started attempting it, what I started realizing is that it's not just enough to attempt it correctly, but attempt it in the best possible way. So knowing the optimal approach was a must rather than just knowing a single solution. So I think GMAT Club tremendously helped me go through multiple solutions whenever I was picking up a question. And when you are doing it at your lesser, you are quite confident in going through any solution because you are not taking it stressfully but peacefully, that okay, you are too calm, you are just going through the questions and you are enjoying the solutions which people have come up with. So it's not just about knowing how to solve it, even appreciating these solutions, that how people are thinking when they are relaxed. And I think that helped me build my own strategy, that look for multiple strategy, multiple approaches whenever you are trying to solve it. And you never know, sometimes you end up in a best solution, or you end up discovering a better solution. When you see a list of approaches, you will see, okay, I can do better. That kind of thoughts, when it starts popping up, I think I definitely contributed a lot even on the quant side in GMAT club after I practiced a few questions. And definitely there are amazing solutions on GMAT club. Like, even though how good you are, you will definitely see a better solution available in the options. So I think my strategy there was to practice as many different variety of questions I could on the platform, and then figuring out as many ways to do it, and then rely a little bit on luck, I would say, that you don't get totally off out of topic question in real test. And believe in yourself, I would say. So believe in yourself to not make any silly mistakes. Believe in yourself that you know everything, and whatever you are getting, you know a solution, although you might not know it just when you read it. But when you have that belief that because I know all the fundamentals, this is something which I already know, I just have to figure out how. I think it gives you a little bit of confidence that okay, this is not something I'm too worried about or stressed about when I see a random question. So I think that eventually helped. And yeah, when we talk about the mock experience, that did throw me out of the track when I started the quant section, which was totally unexpected based on my last year prep experience. But yeah, eventually you add up. Once you go through hard grinding and practice, I think you start seeing everything more positively, and believe, I think, goes along with it.
I actually love how your approach to quant has just been getting so deep into the subject, falling so in love with the subject that you start looking at other people's solutions and just genuinely bettering yourself at the subject. So I'm glad that the crowdsourcing of GMAT Club helped you with it, and you stuck to it very well, and I think it showed up in results. So congratulations on that. The other section of GMAT focus, verbal. So verbal, I think, has been a very hate love journey for you. We'll just break it down into CR and RC. We'll get into CR
Yeah.
first because I know that you put a lot of efforts into CR. You started with Manhattan preps, read the question first, and then think about the arguments. You included LSAT prep, LSAT CR questions into your prep. I remember you telling us that you included Karishma Bansal's strategy as well in your CR preparation. You read to Marty Murray's approaches a lot. So when I say that you've utilized all possible CR resources, I don't think I'm very far off. So give us advice about how to best tackle CR. How did all of these resources help you?
So yeah, I would say it won't be incorrect to say that I tried everything available on web, at least for free, to get me an edge, or as much as an edge possible, to get a decent or good score in verbal. So I think I still know I used to scroll through all the available GMAT club materials, uh, go through even Reddit forums to see people's advices on, like, okay, these are the strategies where you can improve. And I think some definitely really stuck through, and I could see those extra points which eventually helps you get a good score eventually. So yeah, I think this definitely was a love hate journey. I think verbal was something which pulled me back from taking GMAT couple of times in the past, because I was not very confident. Like, I think the first time I attempted it in 2019, I got a 28 or some, or I think it's kind of a 50 percentile score in GMAT Classic. So yeah, if you see that, that was kind of a long journey which took place from that point in time. So I think one thing which really helped me improve my literature was getting into the novels. I think the break COVID era, that's when I actually started reading as a hobby. Uh, Started reading kind of one book per week to reading one book per day. So I think over last 4 to 5 years, I tackled more than like 500, 700 books during my free time. And that's what I think eventually helped me start looking at verbal relatively in a better position compared to where I started with. But definitely, I think the analytical thinking had to be learned throughout the process. That's something which you need to figure out your strategies, approaches, learn from what's available, and start from there. So I think this time I thought to start with getting my fundamentals strong, and that's where the Manhattan prep course helped me. Got the Manhattan prep books, went through each chapter, tried to see the best strategy which people followed, and try to force myself to adopt those strategies, because I think verbal is not just about what you like, but what you can force yourself or better yourself to do, such that you eventually start seeing your results. So most of the times we like to just keep on bouncing between argument and options and just checking which looks better, best. Maybe let me spend a minute more, and you realize you have spent already 5 minutes on the question, and you are still at the starting point with nowhere near to identifying what's the actual answer. So I think I started getting a finesse there, getting the fundamentals strong, identifying what all different topics are being tested here, and trying to establish a base strategy. And once I did it, I think I started scoring around 80s, but it was still a long journey to go. I think wrapping up the fundamentals, wrapping up a prep course is the easiest thing you can do in verbal, because once you go through it, you realize you know everything, correct? It's super easy. Like, what's an assumption question? You just have to negate an option and hooray, you know the answer. But once you start negating, everything starts looking right to you, correct? So basically, the strategies look good, but unless you can adopt it and actually start getting your questions right, that's where the main difference lies. So I think my next step was, after Manhattan, to go through the OG guide, solve the questions. And I think I started realizing, identifying my own improvements during that particular time, that okay, establishing a fundamental, that okay, these are the questions, this is how I attempted. Still, I think I did see improvement, but it was not where I wanted. So I started researching on web on what people tried. Like, I went with LSAT questions, not sure why, but because everyone was advising that this is what you need to do if you have to get better at CR. I jumped on that particular board, started doing LSAT questions. I know I just did LSAT questions for a month in the interim, and I started liking LSAT questions more than the GMAT questions. It was like, if I gave LSAT tomorrow, I might get a good score in CR compared to if I if I attempted GMAT, because I think each of these competitive tests have their own structure to what questions you get. Although it says SIA, but definitely you still need a little bit different strategy to attempt both kind of. Although the questions type seem similar, but still you need kind of little bit of uh, finesse or difference in approaches while attempting it. So when I went through it, I think it improved my analytical skills quite a lot. I think the LSAT questions are such that just one question, for one question, just one option is right. Like, all four options are definitely wrong, and if you can confidently prove it, you are halfway through. So basically, I think that's where I started analytically thinking, even the CR questions, getting some of my experience from the quant side, that this is not just text, this is not just literature, this is not just verbal. You apply your general skills to even solve how you eliminate and try to figure out the nuances, loopholes in the argument, and then attack it. So I think that's where LSAT became kind of a boon. And I think the major game changer for me was the December GMAT Club 12 days Christmas competition. So I still remember the first day when I went for it. I literally haven't attended any contest on GMAT Club before that. So that was my first contest. I go in at around 9 p.m. in the night. There were 8 questions. I still remember 2 from each section. I attempted all the questions, but then there is this quality, or I'm not sure. Generally, you have to write down explanations. I'm not sure how many guys know, but to win points in this contest, you need to write explanations. And my nature till that point in time was writing everything down for quant and maybe for a few questions of DI, but never for verbal. Like I think I felt I was not good enough to write an explanation for verbal. I was not there yet. So how could I explain a question which I myself don't have any idea around? So I just wrote explanations for 6 questions, and then I was just sitting thinking that should I write for verbal? If I want to win this contest, I might actually have to do it. But realistically, I didn't want to. I was in confused mind for quite some time, and I still believe that maybe the best decision in my life. I just decided to go ahead with it. That let's see, maybe someone might mock it, someone might joke it that what kind of this gibberish written here. But I eventually persisted. I think I got kudos on those solutions, from which I started building my own confidence. And when I was writing it, I remember mid contest, multiple times I even did change my own answer, because once you start writing your solutions, that's when you start actually arguing that this is not the correct answer. Although you selected it initially, but then you can't argue against it most of the time. Like the right answer, it's so difficult to argue against. That's when you start realizing it's not just about eliminating just for the sake of it, but can you actually prove it? So those things, I think, again, minute things, you would hear a lot many people saying, okay, write down explanations, adopt this strategy or that. But eventually I think everything boils down to the final score which you see here. It's all those nuances which you adopt. I think GMAT Ninja was the next thing which I went on board with. Many people have appreciated it, so I was like, okay, this is kind of the uh, ultimate solution to all my problems for verbal. Maybe I will just go through it and hit a 85 score. I don't have to do anything. I will just go through these videos. Went through it. I actually liked it. I think there were few learnings, but still, I think unless you don't adopt the strategy, it's still halfway through. Like I think what I was missing till that point in time was that I could get the questions right, but it took me more than what was required. Like I used to take 4 to 5 minutes to get the question right. I had started hitting good accuracy, but the timing element was still missing. And although on paper it looks like you just practice few more questions and you will good with time, you will get good with timings. But I don't think it's just that. Most of the times when you start cutting down your 15-30 seconds, you need a lot of rewiring on how you are approaching it. It's not just about let's just do it. Maybe 100 questions will help us start getting the answers in a minute. Ideally, it didn't happen with me personally. So I again had to go back to the drawing board, start figuring out what else could I do. Maybe pick up some random web article and start judging, figuring out new solutions. And I think I got lucky there. This again comes from a uh, Reddit post from Anna Prep. They had this one-on-one session available with Karishma ma'am. I thought let's leverage it too. Let's check with the experts and see what people are saying about my approaches. Where can I refine? And I think I got a couple of good learnings from that 15-minute discussion. That when you go through the OG questions, I always used to feel that I get like 600, 655 plus questions right. But when it starts becoming 705 plus questions, I mess it up. Maybe I don't analyze it properly, miss something in the argument, don't reason out the options properly, things like that. So basically, I asked that I'm doing quite well, at least on the lower side of the lower level of questions. But when the question starts becoming tougher, either it takes me too much time or I attempted it incorrectly. Is it kind of what's expected? And she had a quite beautiful answer that when you see any question, who determines the level? Like it's like when people attempt it, that's when you start judging. But any question, it's as simple as kind of a 500 or a 700 level question if you have the right strategy and approach. It's just you need to understand the argument properly, and once you start eliminating, you will end up on the actual answer. And for every OG question which is available, I think what her point was that there is no debate around those questions, that okay, this looks incorrect or this option is tricky. You might find like questions from prep sources where there are multiple options which looks correct, kind of a thing. But for OG questions, that there was no such conflict or anything. So that's when I think what I took from that session was that when there is just one question, right? And if I keep on reasoning that I'm getting confused between two options, that's on me. That's not on the question. That's where my strategy is lacking. When we say that I like two options, I think I'm doing something wrong in the first place. You couldn't like two options. It's like one option is 100% incorrect. Either you are missing something somewhere. That's where you are saying that, okay, I like this or I like that. And you end up on a goose chase somewhere. So basically, I think after that session, I got a 3-day free trial. I looked up some of her SIA material. And that's when I think few things which I was getting confused with, it was quite beautifully explained, like the necessary and sufficient conditions. I think one of the quite general topics, but I think I've struggled with it quite a lot. I think I have read like 20 different articles on the internet, and I always used to get confused. What is if, only if, things got kind of messed up when I actually attempted it. But few things were quite easily explained, which anyone could grasp. And I think I started strengthening my approaches, addressing loopholes, which I thought, okay, this is where I am missing things. I am taking sometimes the questions too lightly, missing out reading few things here and there. And I was not pre-thinking. I think that was the major thing till that point in time. For me, as soon as I read a question, I started looking through the options, and then I used to get confused between two to three options. And then I'm spending a minute or two trying to figure out what looks good, not knowing what looks right. It's just like what looks good, which ideally doesn't help you. You are consuming more time and you are ending up on a different trail than what's required. So, uh, what I tried, or at least improved my approach, was to give myself those 20-30 extra seconds when I read the question. The idea there was that read the question and try to come up with an answer. Maybe your answer doesn't exist, but that's fine. But at least when you give yourself that pause, that's when you actually attack the argument. That's where you start seeing the loopholes, that okay, author isn't mentioning this particular fact, or he is banking on this particular thing which is totally flawed. So when you start seeing those gaps, that's where, at least for me, I started identifying, linking the options which it was actually trying to test. And I think I simultaneously started practicing Marty's tricks method too. So my approach was that okay, there were few gaps in my fundamentals. I practiced lot of questions, but they were not strategically aligned to how I want to attempt my mock or my real test. So what I started was again going back to the drawing board, picking up each topic, and then in each topic I started with a 500 level question, trying to build a streak of 10 to 15 questions. So this comes quite late in my journey, like I think 2 months before my actual test. I am going back to day zero, trying to figure out or realigning my whole CR approach to get to that 90 percentile, which I was desiring for from the start. So I pick up each topic, I start doing all the GMAT OG questions from GMAT Club, starting from pre 2000s, because I was like, let's just cover everything so that you don't have a reason that, okay, you missed this particular thing here or there. I even tried all GMAT classic questions too. Definitely, I knew I wasn't going to see them in my GMAT FE mocks. And those are some very, very good questions, I would say. So I included them in my streak strategy, started doing it, and I think it took me around a month or month and a half to wrap up most of these topics. I used to cover fundamentals, read through it, and then just 3 to 4 days to get a good streak on that particular topic, and then move on to the next one. So I think, yeah, you can see it's like even till the end I was trying to figure out what's the right way to do it. So most probably, if I have to say that okay, this is what helped me get that 90 percentile. I would say that won't be wholly right, but I think everything which was used throughout the prep, everything here and there, eventually helped me build a concrete strategy which worked in my case. Definitely, people might not have to work that hard to get there. People are good with verbal. I've seen people wrapping up verbal sections like 10 minutes before the section ends. Kudos to them. But yeah, what I realized during my journey was that if you are willing to try out everything, you will see that eventually you will start seeing the fruits out of it. You will see the improvements and you will get to where you actually want to.
Wow, you actually truly left no stone unturned. You did everything that you could find, and I'm very happy for you. It took you from 50 percentile to 90 percentile, and that's not a joke. That's insane improvement. I think you've just given all the students a golden source whenever they want to think about what next, what more can I do for verbal, especially CR.
Mm.
I think you just gave everybody a golden source for that. So I have a question for you now that might not be extremely relevant to your GMAT journey, but you mentioned that you read a lot of novels. So can we just like get maybe your top three, top five, or any novels from the top of your head that you'd recommend to people, students, professionals, whoever?
I have some good ones, but definitely I wouldn't advise that that's where you learn your GMAT from. My novel journey was just for fun, and I started as a hobby, and that's where I think I built up passion reading whenever I got some free chance. But if I have to say a few which I really like, I think a lot of them come from fiction stories where you see hope, and I think that's what I look forward to in most of these stories. That I think I can relate now. When you start, when you have lot of things against you, you just need hope in yourself, and you just need to back yourself. Maybe world might be against you, but if you can back yourself, you will really reach to where you eventually want to. So I think I'll start with Throne of Glass. That's a young adult fiction. It's a 7 series novel. Sarah J. Maas, popular author. Uh, I think it took around 15 to 20 years for her to write all those novels, and you can see the author's journey through the novel. It's not just about the character's journey, but how an author builds herself. She became kind of a bestseller from last few years. But I think you literally see how the character develops, how the author develops, and you start relating with them. And I think I got quite emotional during those journeys too. This was my initial first or second series which I read when I started reading. So I think your initial books stay with you for long. I think I've read it a couple of times after that, but I think that's kind of the primary one. There are a couple of more series from her, Ekotar, Crescent, which came recently. Apart from it, I would say Amber in the Ashes is kind of my second one. That again showcases a lot of struggle, hope for the character. Poppy War, it's kind of a historical fiction, very nicely written. Gets dark in the middle, but it's a true story. I would say fourth would be Mistborn, another popular series, very nicely written magic fiction. Sanderson, I think it's quite popular from among the fantasy novel readers. So I think lot of them. I think Midnight Library was one of an interesting read. I would go fifth with that. It showcases what happens when every one of us has kind of different decisions at each point in time, and you always end up taking one decision. What happens with the other decisions you don't take? So it becomes kind of a decision tree which you miss, and if you get a chance to travel on those decisions, where you would end up with, and well, while you are on your deathbed, do you want to change your decision in your past at some point in time? So that was kind of an interesting read, because a lot of times we keep on pondering what ifs. What if I would have done that, or what if I would have done this? So I think it's kind of an interesting take from that angle on a little bit on philosophy, that people do choose what's best for them always. So just keep on pursuing where you are at any point in time.
These sound incredibly interesting recommendations. I'm adding these to my to read list now, and I'll
Sure,
come
sure.
back to you and I'll come and discuss all of whatever I thought after reading these books with you. But
Yeah.
having read so many books, having had so many such interesting insights in these books, I'm sure that consuming all of this literature helped you improve your reading speed, helped you improve your analytical abilities in passages, which would have helped in the RC sections, I'm assuming. So your strategy was to spend so much time reading the passage that you can solve any question in under a minute. And that is something that I've not really heard about. So can you walk us through that?
I think I became interestingly or unexpectedly good at RC, which was something which came as a surprise when I actually started practicing it. Because after reading so many novels, that too from different genres, I think you generally don't get bored out of reading any random article or topic. You eventually might like it or not, but actually when you are reading it, you won't lose it. I've seen people lose their focus while reading it. I think that's where I started seeing the benefits of reading continuously for so long, that whenever I used to read anything, uh, i s- I started grabbing important details without requiring to jot down lot many things. So I think I could mentally map, okay, this is what this is saying. That's what the author's tone is. Definitely I had to improve few things, uh, especially for GMAT. You definitely don't do those rigorous practices when you are reading for fun, because you are reading late into night. You are not looking for author's tone on each line, that okay, where is the author going or what he is trying to conclude here. But I think when you are in practice of reading, you just have to do few enhancements rather than to focus on lot many different things, topics. So basically when I started practicing passages, I think I became too good with reading that I used to skim through lot many things, and I had to actually slow down. So I think that was the major thing which I have to change, because initially when I started practicing, I used to get good accuracy, but in stated ideas, in stated questions, I used to get good accuracy. But in those inferred questions, you had have to be little slow to make out those nuances, that okay, what the author was assuming, or where the author's tone was when trying to comment on this particular article or topic. So you need to be invested in to author's mind, not just about what you are getting it on the surface. So when you are just scheming through, you will go through the passage, you will understand okay how it's mapped, what it looks like, but you might miss out nuances here or there, and those used to trick me at the start. So I had a catch up around Jan with BB from GMAT Club. There was this few comprehensions which we are going through, and I was helping him get those questions right, my presenting my viewpoints on what these questions or how these questions are designed, what my thought process was when I was solving it. That's when I was talking with him, I think he mentioned that it's not just about reading the passage and attempting it as fast as you can. People try to optimize times just by increasing their pace overall, but it's about knowing where to slow down and where to increase your pace. So I think the major takeaway for me from the discussion was that whenever we are reading the passage, maybe spend an extra minute. If you can save those minutes in the questions upcoming, then you are in the best state scenario. Read everything. When you are reading it slowly, you will try to gather as much information as possible rather than just reading through without comprehending everything. So I think what I started doing was to slow down my reading. And initially I used to go back to the passages couple of times, like after I read it, because I read it quite quickly. Whenever I read a question, maybe I might have to check for confirmation, okay, is this the thing I read, or did I miss anything out here or there. So basically when I started slowing down, that's when I started realizing that most of the times questions are quite straightforward. Like out of a set of three questions, two of the questions you might not have to work too much for. If you know what's being presented, you can just mark the answer. Maybe there is this one question which is kind of a little tricky one, or again, I would say it's relatively tricky for few people. So in those questions, mostly a few times the options were quite close. If you miss out a word while reading an option, that's when you end up making kind of a silly mistake here or there. Or you miss out kind of a subtle tone change, and you might not know if author is supporting or rejecting that particular idea. So noting down those things, maybe taking an extra minute on those questions, but apart from it, spending 4 minutes for a long passage, 3 minutes for a short passage, after slowing down was what my target was. And once I started doing it, I started analyzing my mocks, and I consistently saw that, okay, maybe I've seen myself reading passages in 1.5 minutes too. When I got lucky with a topic or content which came up, and I was super happy reading it. I was like, wow, this sounds interesting. For what's the discussion around? So I used to skim through those things, and then mostly the average was 3 to 4 minutes, and then trying to attempt most of the question under a minute. So whenever I used to read the follow-up question, I think 80% of the times I used to know, okay, this is what I read in from the second paragraph of the passage, third paragraph, and this is too straightforward. I think this was a major takeaway from my discussion with BB2, that try to force yourself to not go to the passage when you are attempting the follow up questions. If you have invested your time properly upfront, then you might not require to keep on revisiting it, because those things is where you actually end up consuming more time comparatively. We don't realize it when we are attempting the test, but when we start pondering, analyzing our mocks, we will see that, okay, maybe I read the passage in a good enough time, but when I was attempting questions, I was rereading the passage, rereading the question, rereading the options, adding those 2 3 minutes. And I think it's a game of a minute or two at that. Everyone is just pushing for that extra minute optimization for each question. So figuring out where you can get those optimal timings definitely helps eventually to even reduce your stress. I think most of the times, even if you are good with any particular section, if you are not good with the timings, that's where the stress starts building, and you start or end up making silly mistakes in the entry. So slowing down, giving yourself enough time, and just peacefully reading it because you are liking it, it starts helping you see kind of a better accuracy there.
That's actually great advice. I think it applies to so many things in life in general as well. And I'm glad this helped you. So now we talk about a very interesting section that just came to the focus edition. So, data insights. A lot of students believe that preparing for quant and verbal separately will help you with data insights a lot. But I think you discovered in your preparation itself that the handling the data bit, that is something that both of these sections don't really teach you. That is something that is entirely unique to the data insights section. So what was your experience with data insights, and particularly with those dreaded MSR questions?
Oh, I think I was one among the former set which we currently discussed, that just do quant and verbal, and you don't need anything extra for DA. I think I was in this mindset even for initial 6 months of my prep. I was just going with the flow, just focusing on quant and maybe majorly focusing on verbal. I think you can tell by now, figuring out, trying out everything available on the market. So I think that consumed a lot of time for me to even look up for DI or even seriously consider it. I think, again, this is something which came up 2 months before my real test, when I started analyzing my mocks and started seeing actually the section scores. So I think initially when I started, I got a 615 in my first mock. So I was just happy to get to a 695, and that would have been kind of the green scenario or the ultimate achievement for me, I would say. And that's why I initially broke down my sectional scores. In Jan, when I started deciding that, okay, if I want this score, what would be my sectional scores? And when I actually broke down the sectional scores, that's when I actually realized that you need a 255 plus score across all your sections to get that 695. And when we look at DI percentile, I think that's the section which breaks most of your points from your total. Although it has kind of an higher percentile, but if when we talk about out of 90, most of the folks on an average who scores above 90 percentile, we get a 81, 82. It's kind of a gap of 8 to 9 points from your total, irrespective of either it's coming from DI, verbal. And when I started analyzing from that angle, I realized that it's not as easy as I'm thinking. So I used to make few mistakes here and there. I used to get an 81, 82. I was happy seeing the percentile on board, that I'm getting a 90 percentile. I'm good enough here. What kind of practice do I need here? So when I started breaking down, analyzing it statistically, that's when I realized that no, this is kind of a serious concern. It's not just about getting a 90 percentile, but just getting those two extra points to increase your score by 10 point. Real effort needs to go into it. So I think because I was good with quant, I practiced a lot on data sufficiency questions along with my quant practice. Because in my first attempt, that's what I took for granted, and I really struggled in the real test. So I was quite serious on the data sufficiency from the start, that I want to get it right. I don't want to miss out any concept topic here. So I got good with it. But over time, I realized that I didn't focus on any specific yeah questions, I would say, from GMAT classic terminology. So when I started doing DI, I used to make a lot of mistakes on MSRs, even TPA, all those questions with radio buttons, I would say. I didn't get the point for those questions. Like, why do you need to get three questions right to just get the whole question right? Like you are asking me to attempt three questions within 2 minutes and then getting everything right. Like, I couldn't understand the logic, and I was like, whatever, I will just attempt it. And when I'm getting a decent enough score, why even worry? But yeah, when I started rigorously analyzing it, I came across this few threads that DI review guide is when I first saw it in few of the expert replies, that you definitely need to go through all these questions to get decent enough, I would say. And those are difficult questions, period. Like, I think if you if you get half of those questions in DI, I think yeah, we are not scoring even 50 percentile, I would say. So those are really, really difficult questions. And the whole idea, I believe, around that section from the start is like, because it's a new section, everyone is mostly focused on DI and verbal and quant. No one is focused on DI as such. People definitely need your verbal and quant ideas to get DI right, but then you need kind of a separate practice for DI. And I think the best way to address is to know how to handle data. So quite general terminology. I think the whole world is kind of depending on data nowadays. So it's an interesting section. I myself had a lot of practice from my work experience too, handling a lot of financial data. So I was quite comfortable with it, but definitely it's not just about being comfortable. It's even knowing what's the best right strategy to address it within those 2 minutes. I think getting DI questions right is easy, but getting them right within 45 minutes is the ultimate task, because you are just not attempting 20 questions. It's kind of the lowest number out of the three sections, correct? Like, who can struggle with time on DI? But then you realize that, okay, you have these three tabs where you have to read through, you have three questions to be answered for each question sometimes. And then when you total it down, you might end up answering some 25, 27 questions. So basically, I think you are answering a lot, and there is a lot of data which is not required. So understanding that you don't need to know everything, but at the same point in time knowing what you actually need to know, I think that's the biggest game changer for me. That when I used to read this kind of details initially, I used to miss out things here or there. Like, multiple times we see in the radio buttons, the question would be, can this be determined? But we don't pay enough attention to those questions. We are just concerned with, can I get a numerical value for this question? Yes or no? We are just stuck with our quant or verbal mindset, that can I get a yes or no answer? But I think if you leverage your data sufficiency knowledge, it's not about knowing everything. It's just about knowing, can you do it? So I think DI review guide is a must if you want a good score. I'm not sure if there is any better way to put it apart from it. There are tons of questions, or I would say there are tons of difficult questions which you will really struggle with. But once you go through it, I think your mock questions and your real test questions would sound quite easy. Because yeah, once you practice the hardest thing available in the market, what could be more tougher than that? So, and I think the interesting part for these questions are that the solutions are not more than 5 lines for most of these questions. But seeing through those questions, understanding what it's trying to ask, understanding the nuances, I think that's where your strategy and mindset comes into play. That whenever you see a DI question, it's not just about knowing everything, then giving yourself adequate time to solve it, but noticing minor things here or there, which comes with enough practice. And at the same point in time, knowing from the author's perspective who built that question that this question can be solved within 2 minutes. I think that was a major takeaway for me whenever I used to see kind of a complex graph question or multiple tab MSR, that this test is not trying to make us fail. They are just saying we are throwing at you something hard, but it's super easy. Can you look through it? If you can make up your mind to see through, okay, I think it's kind of the half of the battle won. If you can see through it that okay, that's easy, then it's easy for you. If you make it out to be a tough question, seeing all these complicated things, then maybe you might take 10 minutes and not go through even a single question. So I think mindset played a bigger role there. And I think after I even completed DI review guide, MSR was something which I left it for the end. I think I did it like 15, 20 days before my real test. I was like, let's get it done. We can't, I can't push it for more than a week or two now. So I started seeing improvements in lot many seconds after I went through the DI review guide questions. The questions started seeming quite easy, I would say. In the mocks, I started getting decent scores. Even I cracked a 90, which was quite surprising for me after I completed my DI review guide. Totally unexpected, but I believe that once you start identifying those patterns, I think most of the times you will start relating any new question with some question in the past. They are kind of variations to something which you might have already practiced, or you know the strategy. It's kind of a similar strategy, you just need to adapt. Even all these graph questions, even though it's a complete different graph, most of the times it's just looking through those nuances here or there and then going through it. So I think MSR was kind of something which I lagged improvement till my last couple of weeks. But when I seriously, I think it again, it was majorly the mindset block, I would say. Even whenever you try to motivate yourself, you can't motivate yourself enough. There is always this or that. You start seeing something as a nemesis for long and you just tag it up irrespective of either or whether that's too difficult or not. I still used to worry with the number of MSR questions I would get in my test. Will it be two MSRs? Will it be one MSR? I was like, I know I used to pray for a few weeks that just give me one MSR because I'm not good with it. I might crack other questions and that might help me get a decent score. With MSR, if I tank it, I'm just losing too many questions in a single go. But over time, what I realized was that even when I went through this tough MSR passages, I think there was always a trade off. I think, again, looking into those patterns, nuances, when the MSRs text, graphs, language was little tough, questions always came upon the easier end, and it was vice versa. If the passages were easy, questions were relatively tough. So once you start identifying those things, you start identifying where do I need to spend more time. Do I spend more time reading passages? Do I spend more time on the question? And once you start cracking those smaller strategies, you start identifying better time management for yourself. So most of the times, I think after I went through this MSR questions, I started realizing that it was not as tough as I was making it. every time when ended up getting something wrong, I definitely missed reading something. It's as plain and simple as that. There was no rocket science behind. Okay, we are not we are not told to kind of build a spaceship within those 2 minutes. Correct? That's impossible. And other way to look at it is that people are able to decently wrap up MSRs within 8 to 10 minutes. So if you are not able to do it, there's definitely some strategy which you need to adopt, because it's kind of a relative test. Everyone is going through that same time bounds. Everyone is getting a decent score. So it's hard to comment that you are going to get a separate test where you would be just thrown all the hard stuff at you and the test will try to just give you a big zero. Then I think that's not how the test works. So basically, it's kind of, once you start thinking it's easy, that's when you start seeing that maybe it's relatively easy. It's like we end up making it tough ourselves. I see a graph and I see a uh, TPA question and I'm like, okay, this is kind of a 15-line question. How much time will it take me to read? Then I have to iterate, permute through all these options. 5-minute question. But most of the times, it's kind of a 1-minute passage read, and then if it's a dense passage, then I think the selections are too easy. A lot of times, there might obviously be exceptions. Don't quote me that TI is too easy. You just think it is easy and you will get everything right. Do the right practice. And I think not thinking it as a major blocker is, I think, step one to start seeing good improvements. I think at least with MSA, what I observed was that once I started seeing it as a friend, that okay, I will read through tabs, I will focus on my mistakes, that whatever I was skipping while reading it in the first go, or even not reading the questions properly, I will focus on those aspects. And when I attempt it, I will try to use my best judgment. Like, we don't need to think about what's the right answer every time. We just need to think about what I feel is right. Maybe you might get lucky on few questions. If it's kind of an experimentation question, you might get lucky. So you don't have to put or pressurize yourself for each of these questions. I think having that open mindset to go through the question, attempt your best strategy which you have, I think most of the times you would come up on the better side of the discussion. So yeah.
I think my biggest takeaway from this answer is that the sales of the review guide you mentioned, those are going to go through the roof now.
Oh, I
I
think
believe
most
that.
of these questions are available for free on GMAT Focus. I didn't buy it.
But jokes aside, it is really beautiful how you've talked about the importance of mindset in DI as well as verbal, and I think that stands true for the complete GMAT preparation and the taking process. You stuck through all these sections, you've explored all these resources, you've explored all these articles, every no stone unturned, basically. So I believe that your practice routine has to have been crazy hectic. You mentioned that you started with solving 50 questions a day, then that went up to 100 questions a day, which included like 3 reading comprehensions every day, which is very hectic. It would have taken a lot of your time. So I just want to get into your head, understand what did your daily preparation, daily study routine look like?
So I think at the start I just started with the fundamentals. When I began my practice, it was mostly like reading few topics, going through few practice questions either from Manhattan or GMAT Club, whichever resources I was able to get my hands on. I was going through those questions, trying to build my own strategy lot many times, and it was at a decent pace. But once I wrapped up my fundamentals, once I attempted few of my initial mocks, once I started analyzing them and identifying my weak areas, that's when I would say the real practice started, focusing on those topics where I was actually weak at, figuring out better strategies, and then practicing as many questions as possible to get comfortable on these things. I think it's pure determination at after a certain point in time. Like, you want to get that right, irrespective of how tough the question is. It just boils down to it. So you try to give your best and you try to get yourself an edge in your practice so that you don't have to struggle on your test day. You can't hope for miracles on your test day that you get everything what you like. I think most of the times it goes the other way around. You will get most of the questions you don't like. So if you prepare your worst, I think it will help you to be in a better state when you are going through a lot of anxiety during your test day. So I think I started my topic wise practice, and I think most of my practice during my mid part of my journey revolved around verbal, because definitely now we all know how much I liked verbal. So I practiced verbal a lot, adopted different strategy, and definitely I used to get bored out of it quite a lot of times. That when you practice a lot, you don't get immediate results. You want to switch, you want to try something else. And I think that's when the quant helped me. I was relatively good with quant. So when I just wanted that refreshing session in the middle, I just used to start solving random quant topics. Didn't focus too much around topic or which difficulty level I am solving. Just used to pick up a random set, solve it all on time. Definitely. I didn't want to put too much pressure on me while when I'm practicing. I wanted to get my fundamental score logic right. And I hope that eventually when I was strong enough, I think I would do good enough with time. I again followed a lot many articles on how you should practice. Like you should start with untimed practice, you should move to time practice. It will improve your uh, sectional sectional timings and so on and so forth. But every time when I used to do a time practice, I used to go into this stress scenario that I have to complete this question within 2 minutes, and I used to end up making a lot of mistakes. So I think that's something I avoided till the last day of my practice. I practiced few timed sets in the middle, but then most of my practice, I would say 80% was on time. I used to give myself enough time for each question that next time if I see something similar, I know how to approach it. So after attempting each of these questions, I used to go through multiple solutions, trying to identify what my thought process was, what's the thought process of a good solution which is available. Few expert solutions I looked through while trying to practice, and during this I kept on improving my strategies. Maybe I didn't think through this particular logic while I was trying to attempt it, or maybe I missed reading this word, or what I was getting confused with, that was a totally irrelevant option. So why I was even confused with in the first place. So I started noting down these nuances. Same thing with quant. Most of the times I used to get quant right. I think I was doing kind of a 90-95% accuracy on quant across all levels. And because I was doing untimed, definitely I was not getting those many questions wrong, or I wasn't skipping those many questions. So most things what I was learning from those was that is there any better approach? Is there an alternate approach? I always wanted myself to be equipped with as many weapons as possible before going to a battle, so that you always have something in your backpack when the time comes, rather than going in the open in an uncharted territory, being lost there, and then messing up the remaining section at any point in time. So verbal was something which I used to start with, and then I used to take quant breaks in the middle whenever I liked it. Eventually, I think, as we told, whenever I started doing mocks quite seriously, I used to attempt kind of a 65, close to 65 question mock in the morning, and then in the evenings, I again used to do a 30, 40 question set. Uh, I think that ended up being kind of a 100 question daily kind of a routine for last month or two for me. So during this session, I tried to even address nuances like whatever I used to worry I might see on the test day. I think when I used to, again, just a normal test taker here, had to learn, relearn every little bit, got worried about every little bit which we see on the internet, and back to back RCs, back to back MSRs, consistently seeing those information. I didn't expect kind of a miracle to happen with me where I got lucky and ended up getting everything right. So I tried to build even that kind of a mindset for me, that what if I get 3 to 4 RCs back to back? I used to pick kind of a 5 question RC set in the morning, sit for 45 minutes to an hour, do everything in a single go, review everything. And I think here I would just like to mention one thing, which might sound little surprising, but everyone who has access to AI bots like ChatGPT definitely do leverage them. We don't need to sit on expecting explanations from someone when we are stuck. When you have your own personal assistant, leverage it at your best knowledge, because you can ask it as many questions as you want and it will patiently answer each of your doubts. And I think that was even a game changer for me on verbal. Lot many times on this CRRC passages, when I used to get stuck, I used to jot down the full questions on chat gpt, and then my question would have been that explain it line by line to, just as simple as it, maybe explain it line by line to a layman who doesn't know anything, kind of a thing. So going through each of those lines, then understanding, refining why did I miss it in the first place, that's when you start seeing the difference. So when I used to go through those exercises, I used to identify that okay, this was something maybe I paced through too quickly, or if this AI can think through this, why can I not? So if it can think through it, if it can logically see this obvious reasoning in the question, then what is the thing which is stopping me? So at some point in time, I think I started comparing myself to AI to get those analytical reasoning right, that this guy is getting it right, I'm not getting it wrong. And the most funny part about it was that during the process, I don't know when, but you would see your AI hallucinate a lot for a few of those difficult questions, because the choices are too close that it will give you the second best choice, which is correct. And even it might be the second best, most popular choice on GMAT Club. If you go back to it, your AI would even say that that's the correct answer. So, lot many times when I argued with it, I had to explain it that what you are recommending is not the correct answer. So that discussion in itself took sometimes 10 to 15 minutes when it's not agreeing with what I'm trying to explain to it. I am trying to explain it as a layman that no, you are missing out this point and that. And I think that in itself became a fun, good exercise that you are not just learning yourself. Maybe we see people explain that it's not just about learning, it's about if you can teach something better to someone, that's when you actually learn. And for me, I think that that student became chat gpt. I think the role reversed after some time. I started explaining it to lot, and that's when I think I started becoming better at reasoning during few of those hard questions. Maybe whenever I used to ask it, whenever it used to recommend me something, I didn't agree with it in the first go. I used to always argue, why not this, why not that, I think this is the right thing. And eventually you realize that if you give enough points of discussion to each question, you get lot more things out of it rather than just getting it right or wrong. I think it's too easy to mark one option, read some explanation and move on. It's too hard to get it right after proper reasoning, maybe spending 15-20 minutes on a question. But I think the learning from those questions is tremendous. Like, I once you practice few questions using those strategy, you don't have to worry about different questions from that topic. So I think that's where those 100 questions started popping up. Every day I used to get up, like I used to think about what I will argue with ChatGPT today, which question it will start complaining to me about. And I think in the mix, that's when I started going through all this DI review guide. DI review guide, I didn't have enough time because I didn't know when I am giving when I was going to take my exam. I haven't fixed my date till that point in time. I plan to wrap up as much as possible, as quickly as possible. When you practice, I think it's never enough. That's kind of the baseline. You can keep on practicing and you can get 1,000 more questions. I think I ended up practicing close to 5 to 6,000 questions just on GMAT Club over my last 6 months. And if not due to certain circumstances, I might have ended up doing 5 6K more. Because even after those many questions, I felt that no, I still had yet to learn too many different things. I still am not confident on this aspect. So I think maybe it's not always about the number. If you cover up your ground level, if you reason yourself enough, I think because I had to redefine, re-adapt my strategies a lot, I had to practice a lot more questions, because I had to go back to drawing board, start from zero for lot of many different topics in my weaker area. So that took me longer time to get to where I eventually got. But it's not just about those numbers, but eventually you start loving it. Like eventually you start enjoying those questions. You start uh, being a little more competitive. You start building a community around you, and that's when you start comparing that, okay, this many questions I want to do, which topic I want to pick up. uh, and once you start seeing your results in mocks after you are doing your practice, that boost which you get, that's what eventually adds up getting you a better score. So you keep on practicing, you keep on grinding. Basic thing you would hear, not just for GMAT, for academics or for sports: practice, practice, practice. You get there where you eventually want.
I think hands down, this is the most innovative use of ChatGPT I've ever listened to anybody talk about. Actually, arguing with ChatGPT over CR questions, I imagine that would be a amazing stress buster.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't want to immediately jump to the next question. Correct. So it gives you a good break to make yourself superior to an AI. So yeah, always good.
I would imagine this all sounds like a very strategic evolution of your the resources you were taking, the strategies you were making use of. So I have a timeline of your mock scores and how that progressed. I'll just pull that up on the screen right now. Um, I think the real improvement, as you've all established by now, that has been brought by the verbal section. Would you like to talk a little bit about the mock test that we have on the screen here?
Yeah. So 6:15, correct? That's where the journey began. So I think when I started with my Manhattan, I think that's kind of the first advice you get. Give your mocks, start seeing where you are, and start identifying the delta where you want to. I think my target score at that point in time was 695, and I felt if I could just achieve that, that would be the biggest achievement I can get of my GMAT journey. And that's where everything began. 615 to 695. I think it looked difficult to me to start with. Like, I think I went through the fundamentals, gave my second mock, just the same thing. It again popped up with 615. And because I was self prepping at that point in time, I didn't have any clear strategy around, okay, this is what I might adapt, or this is what I need to improve. And tada, I get to that 695. So I had to play around lot many different things. I even during my mock analysis journey, that's where I identified that how important your sectional scores are. It's not just about your final score. It comes from your sectional scores, and you have to focus on your individual sectional scores to reach to where you eventually want to end up with. So I think started with lower end of 615, completed Manhattan, then completed even OG. And I think the next attempt, it got me close to 655. And at that point in time, I felt that I have just wrapped up everything I could, prep course, all the OG questions, which is kind of the general strategy or the advice which you get most of the times. Still stuck at 655. And now I was left out into the open field. You have this 50,000 GMAT club questions, pick up whatever you want. You need to identify how you can get to that 695. So that's when I started micro analyzing my verbal section, because initially I had kind of a low score, as we can see, and I felt that the percentile in itself was quite low compared to DI. If we see, DI had a good percentile, but verbal had kind of, it was on the lower end, and it was not surprising based on my past experience with not enough practice. That's what I expected. Again, no miracles, no magic happen just by going through few things. You have to actually grind through, get your mind into the game, and you can see the result. So that's when I started practicing lot of verbal on GMAT club. And whenever I used to get frustrated, I used to just park it for a few days, just do quant, because that's what my relaxing phase looked like. Maybe going on a beach for a couple of days and then coming back to your 9 to 5 job kind of a thing. Correct. So then I picked up verbal, and I still remember it was around end of December. That's close to 3 4 months, I would say, of my prep journey. That's when I strategized how I do want to use up my mocks. I think I was not ready at that point in time to start wrapping up all my mocks quickly, because where I do wanted to get to, it was quite far from where I was. And if I ended up using all my mocks, then eventually when I did improve, I would have nothing to compare myself against. May not be the best decision of my life, but I think, yeah, when you are trying out everything, that's when you learn through the process. And I think I came across the GMAT club free test day. So I was like, what's the harm in trying it out? Let's give it. I've heard quant being the tougher part, but because I liked it, I wasn't worried about that particular section. Verbal somehow I felt relatively easy compared to, okay, was it because I started practicing quite well, or because it had too many passages? At least in my mock at that point in time, I got 4 passages, and because I liked passages, I was able to get a decent score. So I liked, you definitely like few things every time, few takeaways from each of your mocks. So I still remember I got a 695 on that test, but I had to take too many breaks, unofficial breaks, because I was not able to cope up with the time at that point in time. So I think two major takeaways for me from that particular mock was that I can achieve this score. I have the accuracy. I need to focus on my timings. So when you start seeing those kind of improvements, you start figuring out your next steps. After getting that 695 on my GMAT club test, next strategy what I had was to get them without any extra pauses, which I used up in my first test, and consistently getting that score. When I was building my own strategy, I figured out that people actually struggled on the test day. We, every one of us know that we score relatively around what we generally score in our mocks. So I didn't want to have a too bad of a mock score for me in my last 3 to 4 months, such that my test day reciprocates that particular score. So my aim was not getting a 695, less than 695 score on my mock, on the remaining mocks which I had. How I was gonna do it, I was not sure, but that was something I decided upfront. And I think I delayed attempting my mock for a couple of months, just for that exact reason, that I thought I was not there yet where I could confidently say that I can get this score. I started with quant verbal DI. That was my initial strategy. I think because I was good with quant, going into that section, being relaxed, and then struggling with verbal, which I believe was my weakest section. And DI, I didn't even know where I was standing with at that point in time. So just wrapping up with the unknown section at the end. That was kind of the strategy. Just go with QVD, see how much I could score. Got us got 695. I attempted an expert global. After it, got a 675 after a few days. That's when I started realizing that I'm getting into that upper 600 is of the score. That's achievable. It's not just a dream now. It's just like how much I can refine that I can consistently hit that score even on my worst day. So I started taking learnings from this mocks, that okay, these are the sectional scores. Even while getting 675, while getting 695, I used to tank one of the sections, maybe getting on the lower east side of 80s, making random mistakes here or there. Because it was the improvement phase, I started understanding all these nuances, that okay, these are the factors where I need to actually focus on. So practicing weaker areas, then attempting these mocks, not official mocks again, attempting the mocks which can help me get decent with the official mocks. That was the idea, and I think I pushed it till Feb or even mid March to even attempt my next proper mock kind of a thing. I still remember getting on call, the 15-minute call which I told with Charisma ma'am, and I literally heard her scold me that for whom are you saving this mocks? You might just be giving up your test in a month, and you might not even have kind of enough time to attempt all your remaining mocks. Because I, after my Manhattan prep course, I had all these 6 mocks, attempting it twice. That gave me kind of a 12 attempts. My worry never was not completing the mocks. My worry just was at that point in time was getting a low score on a day and then replicating that experience on my real test day. So although I was actually quite ready till that point in time to get my desired score, I was not 100% willing to go through with it. uh, I always felt that there is something lacking. Let me practice 100 more questions from these topics and then I will attempt the mock. Maybe I will get a good enough score. And actually, when I did start attempting it, that's when I think I started boosting up the remaining 10-20% confidence I needed for going to the real test. Because I still remember starting to get those initial 700s, like lower 700 scores. After that, I think my practice was enough, although I didn't realize it till that point in time. And it actually started reflecting in my mocks. Like I think in my last 7 to 8 official mocks, I got a Q90. So I think I was pretty sure with my quant by that point in time that if it's my worst day where I just forget half of the things I have learned or I panic, that's the only case where I wouldn't be able to crack a Q90. But most of these uh, practice tests, I started building a pattern where I used to complete my section within 30 minutes kind of a thing for quant. So I used to have this 10-15 minutes to review each question. So I still know I used to attempt each question twice in quant just to be pretty sure that I'm not missing out anything. I still remember in my initial couple of mocks, I had to review and edit one question in few of them to get it right. I misread it sometimes, but in my review thing, because I was going through all those 21 questions, I gave myself that buffer that if even if I was a little quick, miss something, I will have that opportunity to correct it in my second go. And I even planned it for my real test. I'm not sure why now. I was not sure how I was so confident that I will get those 10-15 minutes in my real test too. But because of my consistent performance over there, I knew that, okay, this is how I'm going to attempt it. Coming to verbal, I think whatever we discussed till now, everything was going in the background. I think when we talk about Feb, March practice, even going back to the drawing board, starting with this rewiring of CR from zero, building this streak method, lot many things went into it. I even know after completing that full exercise after a month or two, I got 100 percentile in CR from somewhere where I was struggling to get half of the CR questions right, getting an 100 percentile. I think that's where you actually start seeing the outcome, seeing the result that it was not for none. And I think it's the similar time, Feb, March kind of a time when I started with DI review guide too. And I think my biggest learning during this phase was that uh, why go with the most obvious section order, which everyone recommends. I think QVD or VQD is kind of the most commonly thought through section orders, which most of the test takers follow. I was quite surprised at why DI was not taken initially when it required so much data analytics, so much time consumption, and so much energy. Why leave it when you are almost getting tired? So I think I started reanalyzing those things that I want to be fresh when I attempt DI. I want to give all my effort attempting DI, and then I want to go into something most comfortable for me. So I adopted a new section order DQV for me. Again, people will question on why take two quant sections back to back, but it depends upon how much or what you like. For me, doing quant for 2 to 3 hours was not a struggle. So I can get do with it, cover it in a single go, take a break, and then start with the section which I most struggled with. So when I what I observed was that when I was going from D to from Q to V, I used to get blank at the start. Like the transition was not smooth for me. Like initial verbal questions coming from Quant, reviewing it twice, I used to struggle in the initial questions and I used to mess up my timing. So my strategy was to give myself enough time, get into a break, get into that verbal zone, and then start doing the section so that I know I'm doing verbal, I am fresh, I got that 10-minute window to think through things rather than just transitioning immediately from a different section. And I put Quant in the middle because I was too flexible with wherever I could put Quant in. I could start with it, I could end with it, I could put it in the middle. But I wanted to switch into a section where I was comfortable with, even though, however tough or whatever the section came in, I think I wanted to be in a safe zone there. So, getting DI in the start, uh, I started analyzing GMAT algorithm also on the way. That if I start with DI, and then there is a huge possibility I would get easy questions to start with because it's your first section. You get all these 600, 650 level questions compared to if I end with it and if I'm performing quite well, then I might just start seeing difficult questions. And DI being a vague section, any amount of practice was not enough. You see a random question thrown at you, although how good you are, it might take you on a toss. So I think it was little bit playing with the section adaptiveness too, going with the DI section first, trying to knock off all these easy questions, which you can get a good score on. Quant might get difficult, but because of the comfortableness, I was good with it. And I think I attempted last 6 to 8 mocks using this section compared to my initial mocks. And I think there was a clear 20 to 40 points difference as soon as I changed the section order because I used to take my DI section quite lightly initially. Now I started focusing quite rigorously on it. And then I also started seeing, because of my verbal practice and how I was transitioning into that section, the score eventually improved there too. So lot many different nuances trying to adjust, but I would definitely say that section order does play a role. So experiment with few things and see what works for you.
I think that's all really good advice. But I am aware that the mock tests are not the same as the real test day. There are a lot many factors that come into play when you uh, go to give your exam on the exam day, right? So can we just get a quick overview of what your exam day was like? What was the reaction on seeing the 775 score? That's what I'm really excited about hearing.
Yeah, definitely. You are not hoping for that score, correct? When your mock scores are what we currently saw. So major thing I think what helped me going into uh, the test day was Marty's advice to visualize yourself being successful on your test day. Now, as I told, I just referred every page of every book I could get on the web, giving myself an edge over whatever I could. So every night for last 2 weeks, when I went to bed, I used to visualize myself getting a 755 score, going through those sections, feeling myself comfortable after wrapping up each section, being positive, thinking that I know most of these questions I am scoring well, even though whatever happens, building that mindset of seeing a good score was what set me up. And one thing which I can put it to pure luck was that my last couple of days before my actual test, a lot of good positive things happened around me. I think that played quite critical role in what my test score actually reflected because I think as soon as I got up, had my breakfast, I was feeling quite energetic and positive. I'm not sure why. I should have ideally felt lot stressed. I couldn't get good amount of sleep on that day. Just managed 6 hours, but somehow because of everything happening good, I thought that this is kind of my day and I would get a good score even before even actually going into the test center attempting it. And yeah, had breakfast, all normal routine, solved couple of DI questions. All easy questions, I would say. 500 level questions, so I can build my confidence. I didn't want anything demotivating me with all the positive vibe going around. Went into test center, completed all the formalities, set on my desk. And again, when I saw the section order, I had this thought that should I still go with the section order, which is not recommended or normally used by most of the folks. If we see the segment bifurcation, DQV or DVQ might be on the lower side of the uh, preferences which people might pick up. Picked it up, started with my DI, got a super easy DS question, I would say, to start with. So I was super happy. Uh, Started getting things right. And then I saw some weird TPA question and a lot of non-math based question to start with. Now that totally threw me off track because after I practiced this many things, I think even though we have too good of a practice sessions or whatever, non-math based DI questions always fall on the gray area. Most of the times we don't know what's actually right, what's wrong. So you need to go with your gut feeling, and that's not something you want to be doing on your test day after this much practice. After practicing all your concepts, you are utilizing your gut feeling to mark those questions. So that was little different, I would say. Apart from all your mocks, that was something I was not expecting. But anyway, push through it, and then comes your first MSR. The thing, the nightmare, and the love which you build over time. I think somehow I just felt they were relatively easy because of the DI review guide practice on what I'm not sure. I was able to understand the tab, give good enough time, didn't spend anything extra on any of these questions. Got back to back MSRs. I didn't even worry about it. If I recall now, I was just solving it one by one, not thinking too much around which question I am getting right, which I am getting wrong, why I am getting this kind of a question. Just going through the exercise, enjoying it, and by the time I ended my DI section, I felt that I'm on track for a 705 score. I was not sure how I performed. Definitely, it was not my best DI performance till date. I did have some good ones in my mock, but I felt I did decent enough. I was on track. I haven't messed it up yet. Super confident going into quant. Super easy, correct? When you are scoring Q90 for your last 8 official mocks, what can go wrong? Your real test, correct? So I start with quant, get some really difficult questions to start with. Like I remember taking 15 to 20 minutes for my first 5 questions. Now that's something you don't want to do on your real test. Like when you are averaging a 2 minute, when you are wrapping up your sections in 30 to 35 minutes in your mocks, taking 15 to 20 minutes for your first 5 questions. I think after wrapping up those questions, not being confident on one or two questions, first time in my life I was worried that will I not complete my quant section? Like, did I actually mess it up? Thought it for a minute and then just let the thought go. Whatever happens, like there is no point pondering upon what actually happened. Let's go through it. I have seen lot many difficult questions. God knows, maybe I might get super easy questions now. So just hoping to get easy questions and you eventually getting it. That's what happens. Actually, that's what happened with me. I was able to wrap up next 15 questions in 20 minutes or so, I believe. So again, completing the full section within 35 minutes. Definitely not starting as I expected, but definitely ending to what I wanted with. Had those 10 minutes, I again went back to those 5 to 10 questions, which I initially struggled with, verified my answers using different approaches. That's what I was talking about, that because I initially struggled with, I wanted to eliminate that one nuance which I might have missed here or there. So I started using different approaches to verify my answers. That did I get them correct? Did I not mess it up in any way? And I think after those 10 minutes, I was super confident that okay, I have got most of these questions right. Now, unless I have done something silly, I think I was super confident that I was on track with Q90. Got on a break, got a protein bar, drank some water, and I thought that maybe based on my two sections, if I end up doing my verbal good, I can get to 755. Although that was a score I never achieved in my mock, But those are the thoughts which I was having at that point in time, and I think that's what eventually helps you get to that score, that you start thinking forward towards it rather than stressing too much about what not, kind of a thing. So I thought I am on track, I will get it. Maybe let me zone into verbal, let me get my best verbal score, which I haven't get yet in my mock. Too optimistic thinking, but that's what I went into that particular verbal section. And again, the same tragedy struck. 4 to 5 initial questions, too tough for me to comprehend, even after utilizing this many approaches, this many strategies. I was not able to make out the correct answer for any of these questions. Like, it wasn't that two choices were close. To me, it was like all the choices were incorrect. And I was like, that's the worst scenario to be in. Like, what do you guess if you feel that everything is incorrect? So after those 5 questions, I think from the height of 755, I just came to 695. That now I have messed it up. Maybe next try, I will just push through it. We'll see. No point in worrying too much about it. I bookmarked a couple of questions. I thought that if I get time in the end, I will revisit it and see if I can figure out what I'm missing. Questions started getting relatively easy afterwards again. So I got relatively easy questions in the middle, got a dense passage uh, towards the end, which was tricky to understand. Lot more nuances. I read it a couple of times, couldn't understand. And based on how good I was with RC, that was something I was not expecting. So expect the unexpected, I would say. Like, how much practice you do, you would see the uncertainties, the unknowns popping up on that day. But the strategy which you build over time really helps. What I did was to just go through the questions, understand the gist, not focusing on why I'm not understanding each word line by line. Instead, trying to just uh, figure out what's the question is trying to ask and getting into the author's mind on where he's trying to trick me. Okay, he's just trying to guess a stated idea from the question, or he's just telling me to infer something which might be somewhere around where that concept is being discussed. So maybe you might have to adapt few things on the fly, that you need to adapt new strategy, you need to figure out few things. I went through it. I felt the questions were relatively easier compared to how dense the passage was. And by the time I came to my 19th question, my system lost internet connectivity. And that's when the real panic set in. I had so many thoughts at that point in time that I'm not even sure how I am performing at that point in time, how good my score is. Will it get fixed? And will I have to reattempt? Will I do better than this? Will I mess it up? All these things just within a minute. It had to be reconnected. It was super smooth. Uh, I was attempting it at a Pearson center. So the process was quite smooth. They reconnected it within a minute. But yeah, those single minutes to couple of minutes creates a lot of stress. Like, I think I had 10 minutes left by that point in time. I think I had to do 3 to 4 questions. I just rushed through those last 4 questions. It was like last 4 questions. I'm not even sure what I'm reading. I just rushed through it, and I was now confused that should I focus on the remaining questions? Should I now focus on my initial questions? What I need to do? Lot many things started popping up. However calm you are, yeah, you never know what will happen. So I wrapped up the section. I had 5 minutes left, and I went through my initial questions again. And now I'm not even sure what I need to focus, what I need to do. I changed the correct answer to incorrect and just ended the test. So yeah, I think when I submitted my test, I definitely knew I messed it up. I think there was no way I was scoring a 700 uh, after my verbal section. But yeah, it was 775, something I never imagined myself doing it. And I never knew what sectional scores I would want to get to 775. And the thought which I had at that point in time was the thought which the test center lady told me, that you need to mark your sectional scores correctly. This is just an official one, and then you will get your official score within few days. I was like, who won't recall your score? Correct? It's easy. You just see three sectional scores. I've seen it in so many mocks. What's there to be doubting about yourself after seeing it? And literally after seeing that score, I was doubting myself. And I recall that advice that yeah, this is something serious, that you might see something but you won't believe it. Yeah, you getting into that 775, uh getting a 90 in DI, where you start with, I think that's your major game changer. And that's where I started uh thinking that now it made sense why I got initial questions so tough in both my quant and verbal section, because of the section adaptiveness which people talked about, but maybe it wasn't analyzed till that level, where at least for me I felt that this is not what I expected. It might be a general uh, pattern, but I never saw it in my mocks. Your definitely algorithm might differ in your real test, but this was too different, like getting too many difficult questions. The pattern was different. So yeah, I just saw the score. I just had to see my verbal score, correct? I just had to remember my verbal score. Rest two sections at 90. Just had to verify that the sectional scores still add up to 775. Came out of the test center, I know, sitting in the cab, opening GMAT Club Focus Calculator, pulling all those sectional scores, that is it still correct? Is it still real? And yeah, once I validated it, I started accepting it, that okay, I might have used all my luck for that particular day. I think it's not just about hard work after a certain point. It's like you getting lucky, you getting the right answer out of the two guesses, which are quite close. So, lot more of those nuances starts coming into play. You can strengthen your concept, but then always uh, you get something which you like more. You get questions from a topic which you are more comfortable with, you end up doing it well. So lot many different nuances, patterns might emerge out of it. And if you are lucky, if you get lucky, that's why people attempt it multiple times. You get out with your desired score on that particular day. I think for me that was my first attempt, and I was able to get through a very good score based on what my target was. Definitely something I didn't expect based on how different it was from my official mock average. So miracles do happen, but definitely it's backed by how much hard work and patience you keep into it, and enjoy the process. That's kind of the journey throughout. For me, during my journey, at certain point in time, it was about not just pushing through it, it was even liking it, contributing it, and enjoying it. I think the best debrief advice after reading tons of it on GMAT Club, on Reddit, on different prep platforms, was that when you come out of that test center, uh, feel that you give your best on that day. Test might get you, it's okay. Buckle up, reattempt it, go next. But you need to have that feeling that you tried your best. Whatever happens, happens. You don't have to worry about why or what happened after it. You just want to come out of that test feeling that this is the best I could have done based on what I know. And I just went with that mindset that I will try my best. If it eventually doesn't work, I will reattempt it. I still have two official mocks saved for it for my reattempt, because I didn't know how I would end up doing it. So I even went with that backup there. But yeah, eventually it ended up working out.
This has been a journey full of ups and downs, a truly roller coaster journey, and I can only imagine how happy you must have been in the end when it all paid off. Harsh, it's truly been enriching listening to your GMAT experience so far, and I think one thing I'm sure is that when you keep going at something, everything just the universe aligns, your efforts align, everything just aligns. So I think I would like to bring us to the end of our session today by asking a very important question. Um, What do you think realistically? Usually, people have a couple of months, 6, 8 months, when they're preparing for GMAT. So, how do you think that a test taker should should plan their studies to finish their studies to best prepare themselves in this short period of time?
I think if I now look back and strategically plan the whole journey, I think it definitely starts with your mock. Start with your mock on day one, identify where you are, and maybe not a general advice which most of us receive, but identify your sectional scores. I think that's super important. You need to know what you are scoring in your each section, and you need to know how much you need to score in your each section to get to your desired score. Have a target score in mind, identify your delta in each of your sections, and then plan out how much practice effort you need in each of those sections. So first and foremost is like cover all the fundamentals. Don't leave anything for granted that maybe it might not show up for me on that test day. I think it's too much wishful thinking. So cover up all your fundamentals first, and then once you start practicing, figure out your weak areas and start targeting practice where you relearn things, actually improve on your approaches to get to where you want. Either it's your 500 to 650 or 600 to 750. I think everything is achievable within a time limit if you can give yourself enough time, and you can be true to GMAT as you are true to anything which you want to do in your life. If you can consistently do it, I think I never missed a day in last 6 months when I was practicing for GMAT, irrespective of whatever I was doing. Maybe getting those 2 hours, 4 hours, whatever you could, even 15 minutes, I would say, would be sufficient enough to stay in the game. And you need to be as invested as possible, just any financial investment you do over time, it eventually grows, but you need to be invested for a longer duration. So this is not that different in a way. So target your weak areas. There are things where people think that they plateau after some point in time, but I think they plateau with the strategies and approaches which they have. So you need to be willing to just forget what you know and relearn it from scratch if you want to get those extra 10, 20 points even. Because as you go on the higher side of the score, it becomes that difficult to get that 10, 20 points unless you rethink, reanalyze lot many things. Like no one, I think no expert can help you directly apart from yourself. So you are your best judge. You need to analyze your weak areas. If you can analyze whatever mistakes you are making, if you are willing to improve, and you can put in the required determination and effort in the process, I think most of the times you should get it, or else why not.
That's all great advice, and that brings us to the end of our segments today. So, Harsh, you have very graciously written down some insightful takeaways from your journey here. I'm displaying them on the screen one by one. And, Harsh, if you can, I would just like you to maybe say a couple of lines about each takeaway. So, the first takeaway that you've mentioned is that you're never really ready for the GMAT. If you think that you're 80% ready, you're probably good to go.
Yeah, I think that's the major question I had during my practice journey, that when should I pick up a date when I would get my desired score. And after talking with multiple people, I realized that no one is 100% ready. And even if you are, you never know what will happen on the test day. So once you start being confident, getting those consistent scores in your mock, I think you are almost there. Go for it, and plan your next steps accordingly. So yeah.
That makes sense. So the next takeaway that you talk about is practice so much that even on your worst day, you're getting your desired score or a decent score.
Yeah, that's a strategy which I think you will never see anywhere, because that's something I developed on my own. So most probably we see different things happen on your test day. based on lot many different parameters, anxiety, stress. And when you are taking your mocks in a relaxed, calm environment, you are bound to get a good, decent score. So prepare yourself such that even your bad scores are decent enough for whatever you are targeting. If you are comfortable seeing yourself in that position, then how bad your test day goes, you would be happily walking out of that test center on that day.
That's actually very valid. Uh, One relevant takeaway that you gave us was that test anxiety is very real. So you have to stimulate the real environment anytime you're giving the test.
Yeah, very, very valid. And I think you will find this advice at lot many places and lot many platforms. Like I believe for my last 6 to 8 mocks, I used to get up at 9. My test timing was booked for 10. I used to sit at 10, follow the exact order which I followed in my real test, take a break for exact 5 to 7 minutes, not even stretching it till 10. Even I would take it for 3 to 5 minutes, but never till 10. And then directly jumping out of verbal and ending the session as I would end my real test. Trying to limit your factors which are under your control on your real test day actually helps you be more physically and mentally be prepared. Your mindset develops in that pattern. You start being more active during that particular time when you are actually attempting the real test. So eventually those things starts adding up, getting those extra 20, 30 points, I believe. So yeah, better to try it out.
Another, I think, very relevant advice that you've given us is the advice to have a study buddy, and not just for accountability, but also for your other experiences like venting, laughing, sharing, explaining to each other, maybe.
Correct. And I think I got lot many good people to interact with. Big few became my study buddy over my journey with GMAT Club. And most of the times I realized that, yeah, you discuss questions, but those are limited. Lot many times people are mentally struggling through the process. That's where people are venting through, not able to achieve things. Maybe laughing on your own performances sometimes help to get relaxed, chill, making a joke here or there, and understanding that everyone is going through the same struggle. Everyone is trying to grind, understand, improve themselves. That eventually brings a little bit of comfort, and you feel that you are not alone here. It's kind of a journey which you need to take with people. You will you will meet lot many different people from different genres. You learn about them, and that makes it lot more interesting. It just doesn't have to be just quant or verbal. It can be lot more philosophical too. So yeah.
That brings us to the last takeaway that you gave us, which was GMAT Club community is gold. You should use it and you should give back whenever you can. So,
Yeah,
on that.
I think that point needs no explanation. Most of us would already agreed who would have enrolled on GMAT Club. Tons of free practice. It's best about how you can utilize it to your best knowledge. Feel free to explore it, and at the same point in time, to improve, it's not just about what you can get back. It's about teaching it back. It's about contributing it back. Whatever you are good with, maybe put down your own thoughts. Someone down the line, 5, 10 years might actually benefit from it, and he might be grateful to you about what you are doing. So as it's true for every community, it's kind of a give and take. And everyone who brings something to the platform, it makes the platform that much more beautiful. And that's why I think definitely improve, improve in a group, and relax and chill.
I think that's the best advice yet. Harsh, it's been great having you here with us today. Thank you for sharing your insights and your experiences and really going in depth with all the advice that you had to give. Congratulations on your great score and good luck for your applications coming ahead.
Thank you so much, and thank you again for having me here.